Hola a todos, como ven pude entrar en esta reunión por mi cuenta, somos parte del grupo de Anonymous de Latinoamérica. Estamos entrando a diversas clases alrededor del mundo para dar un mensaje. Todos saben que las futuras generaciones serán unos idiotas si aprenden lo que usted profesor les enseña a estos jóvenes, así que le pido que termine esta sesión, de lo contrario intentaré controlar su cuenta y
Have you ever loved someone so much that you can feel it deep down in your soul? Girl, I tried. But this is how I feel about the one I love. Let's sing it together. Always, always. I never knew a love like you before. You came into my life and gave me more. You are my friend, also my man. Always, you just don't know what you've done for me. You gave me love and now I'm complete. You are the sunshine, the only one, and never always. me. I was a soul that was lost and incomplete. You were my friend, you were, and now you're my man, my man. And I want you always. I just don't know what came over me. You touched my soul and let me feel free. Always be there, baby, don't be scared. Always, baby, always. Don't leave me, don't ever be there. I promise my life to you and I love you. Baby, don't leave me, don't ever be there. I promise my life to you and I love you always. What's going on? I waited by the phone. You said you were calling me. Well, it's just after nine. So late. Yeah. Don't say that something's come up. This girl I know it might be. And I've got plans for you and I. So don't say no tonight. You know I'll make you dance for this night. So don't say no tonight. Baby, come to me and all of your dreams come true. I haven't forgot what turns you on. I'll sing you a love song. Right in the mood, we'll get straight to the groove. Yes, we will. I still know the right places to touch to make you want to stay. Anywhere that I desire, it's just all on fire. So don't say no tonight. You know I'll make you dance for this night. So don't say no tonight. Baby, come to me. Yeah. Give me a chance. Tonight we'll find romance. I think you should know. Girl, I need you to know. It's been a while together once again. Now you hear each other's songs. Although we know it isn't right, I know that we're wrong, 'cause we've done it so long that it's a hard habit to break. So we won't get in line. It's just a matter of time till we make our first mistake. The feeling is so hard to shake. sure that she doesn't know when it started to lay on my mind. How much longer can we keep taking chances, believing on the she's not blind? Yeah, I'm scared of the world. So committed to him, and there's no breaking away. Oh, so stick to faith. You need to stand up to me. To go outside the way. Well, so far. Got a lot of love to give. We've only just begun. The romance is not over. I've got so much love to give. I remember oh so well when I first held your hand and we started to dance. I had this awesome crush on you, hoping deep down inside that you wanted me to. And now we're here together, preparing ourselves for the future, yeah. 'Cause there's so much that we can do. Oh girl, let me show you. We've only just begun. Our romance is not over. And got a lot of love to give. We've only just begun. The romance is not over. I got so much love to give. Let's go to our favorite place. Close to the fire and let our passions run wild. And love the night away. I'm just dying to reach you. Oh, I'll never leave you. Oh, girl, let's stay close and get lost in each other's love. 'Cause there's so much more that we can do. Oh, I love you, girl, and I'm gonna show you. We've only just begun. Our romance is not over. We got a lot of love to give. We've only just begun. Our romance is not over. I got so much love to give. Girl, I think that I love you too much. I wanna be with you every day. I'm gonna always be your lover. I believe in each other. Oh, what a night. Don't you feel like flying in the tonight? Can't blame you for trying. Love, look up there, the stars are all aligned. Don't you think it's time? Oh, 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 closer to me. I want to feel your breathing permanently. 'Cause darling, I'm not leaving here till I get what I've been waiting for. Some 25 or more. That's all I need. Oh, kisses in the moonlight, sugar, that will make this night complete. There got to be, oh, kisses in the moonlight, sugar, fly away with me. Oh, oh, oh. Most of my days so busy running, lost in my maze. Got no time for fun and dreams. But every now and then the dream is real. This is how it feels. Hey, once in your life, think about tomorrow. Tonight is the night. Our world seems so far away. A very good evening to everybody. Welcome to our third edition of our innovation series. Today we are going to have a very interesting discussion by Mr. Gilbert Agaba, who is our acting director intellectual property. He's going to speak about how we can exploit or commercialize our copyright. Before Gilbert comes in, a few rules. Use the chat room to post your questions, your opinion, or your suggestions. And then at the end of this presentation, we will take questions and answers, and we will be together for a period of 1 hour. We are going to share our YouTube. We're also on YouTube. You can share our YouTube with the rest of your stakeholders and friends to follow the discussion. Gilbert, you're welcome. You can share your screen and you start your presentation. A very good evening to everybody.
Thank you, Nambavi. Trying to see where to share. Can you see the screen, full screen?
Yes, Gilbert, your screen is visible.
All right, so I hope it doesn't show two sides.
You can just go to the view side and then you click, instead of the view side, double click on your actual screen where you see what is copyright, and then it will show us. It won't show the notes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, but even the third icon, the fourth icon, yeah, that's it's now fine.
It's now good?
It's fine, it's fine.
Okay, just give me a break because as you can see it, I can see it. All right. Okay, we're good now?
Yes, and also add the volume on your gadget so that you're loud enough for all of us to hear and follow.
Okay. All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for sparing your time to come and join us. Today we're talking about copyright. I know we have 1 hour. This is a very complex topic, so I'll try and go through a few things. We are focusing today on commercial exploitation of copyright. My name is Gaba. As you heard from our host, the acting director of IP. So to start with, copyright. What is copyright? Copyright As someone once said, it in simplistic term means the right to copy. Copyright refers to your interest in literary or artistic work as an author. If you create any of these things, whether you write a book, whether you prepare or write a computer program, whether you are a performer in theater, whether you are a music performer, all these types of literary and artistic works are protected by copyright. There are many more, as you will see later, but examples of them here, we have the sculpture, the Independence Monument, that is a work of copyright. We have on the lower right side, people creating a film. The movie is copyright work, computer programs and databases, books, stand-up comedians, maps, paintings, photographs, all manner of illustrations, any form of writing is protected via copyright. So what is not protected under copyright? One, they are what are called public benefit works. So court decisions, legislation by parliament and administration authorities, news of the day, government reports, all these are called public benefit works and are not covered by copyright. They are specifically excluded from copyright protection. What it means is that you can do as you please as long as you do not infringe on what are called moral rights. We will see that later, but public benefit works can be reproduced without seeking authorization. The other thing that is not protected are ideas, concepts, procedures, and methods. If you're in physics, for example, a genius called Albert Einstein came up with a formula of relativity called E equals mc squared. That formula is an idea and it cannot be protected because they are considered as building blocks of artistic expression. And it is believed that if you provide protection for these concepts, you will prevent further innovation, or you prevent new people from coming up with new expressions that we can benefit using copyrights. So ideas, concepts, procedures, all these aspects, methods, mathematical methods, teaching methods, all these things cannot be protected via copyright. So in terms of expression, in terms of protection, what copyright protects or whom it protects is the author of the work. The person who actually fixes the work in a material form is considered the author. So imagine if you are walking on a street and someone is recording you, or you are speaking to the public and someone is recording you on a phone or other device. The person who actually fixes or is recording you on a physical device is considered the author. You might remember the late Seah. He sued MTN when he heard that MTN was using his speeches as callback tunes. And when he went to court, he said, well, this is me, this is my voice, and court agreed. Even the defendants were not disagreeing that it was necessary that they are speaking, but he was not the author, therefore he was not the owner of copyright, because another person was recording him. He went, added a few things, arranged it properly, and sold it to MTN. So the person who recorded him is considered the author. So the other requirement for you to be protected is that your work must be original. Originality here does not mean that your work, what you created, is necessarily new or it is of good quality. It only implies that you did not copy, but merely applied some simple creativity. So if you have a child, for example, who starts scribbling a picture of yourself looking like a stick man, that artistic expression might not be of good quality. Neither can it be considered something that takes a lot of effort. But that's not the requirement. The requirement is that the child did it without copying anywhere, and he applied a simple skill in coming up with this work. That is a test of originality. It might simple here, it might look like it is simple here, but when there's a dispute, usually this is where the problem arises as to what is original or whether someone otherwise copied. But remember that originality does not mean that it's new or it is of quality standard. If you sing a song that is rubbish, you will still get copyright protection, even if it is only your mother that enjoys the song. So those are two requirements, that you are the author and what you've created is original. What we should also note, if you're in this business, is that copyright is different from the physical thing or the material in which the work is embodied. What do I mean? If you are a painter, for example, a visual artist, and you draw these good paintings, if I come and buy from you this painting, I do not own the copyright in your painting. I'll only take the physical thing on which your expression is embodied. So I cannot get this painting and I go and put it in my hotel for the public to view and enjoy without me getting some kind of payment for my IP. So it's different. It's the same reason why you buy a book and you do not automatically have right to go and make copies of the book and sell to the public. Most people assume that merely because I've expended money in buying software, in buying music, you've heard of people who say, well, I'm making copies of this movie because I bought the original. I have the original so I can make a copy. That's not the thing. You only bought the physical thing in which copyright is embodied. The copyright in that work stays with the author of the work, unless, of course, there's a contract to the contract. The other confusing aspect is that copyright protects the expression, not the ideas that are contained in that expression. And let's imagine a scenario where you are a singer-songwriter and you look at the traffic jam in Kampala, you decide to write a song about traffic jam in Kampala. That is the idea, okay? So when you write it down, you have expressed that idea about traffic jam in Kampala. In that way, what is protected is what you have written down. I can also get an idea about traffic jam in Kampala and also write my song about traffic jam in Kampala. That's why there are so many songs about love. There are so many songs about problems that we are facing. There are songs about the country that our country in which people come from. There are all these songs. The idea usually can be the same, but it is the expression that is protected. It is the expression that is covered by copyright. This in law, they call it the idea expression dichotomy. So remember that it is the expression, how you express or fix that idea in material form that is protected by copyright. And the final thing to note here is that for copyright, generally, the author is protected for his or her lifetime plus 50 years. So if you create a work, it will be protected for the rest of your life until you pass on, and then an additional 50 years after you pass on. That's how the essays of Michael Jackson are able to make more money than he made while he was living, because his copyright subsists even after his death for 50 years. After 50 years, the work falls in what is called public domain. That's why today you can go and make copies of Henry IV or Henry III, these works of William Shakespeare. Now that we understand what is protected in copyright, what do you gain when you get copyright protection? As an owner of copyright, you have what are called economic and moral rights. Starting with the economic rights. As an author, you have the right, it is your right as the author of this work to produce or make copies of the work that you have come up with, to sell these copies of the work to the public, to perform. For example, when you write a song, it is your right to go and stand before the public and sing that song. It is your personal right, your exclusive right to broadcast the work. So you may want that song to be broadcast on radios and TVs. This is your right as the author of the work. To communicate the work via the internet. So if you want to put it on YouTube, if you want to put it on streaming sites, this is your responsibility and this is your right as the owner of the work. And to make derivative work, most of you today watch Marvel movies. Marvel movies are derivative work of some publication by that studio. So Marvel, the movie is a derivative work of a literary work that was owned by Marvel, the company. And then you also have the right to commercially rent out your work to the public. Now, these economic rights, the way you should look at them is that there is a way you make your work to be available to the public, or how you exploit or make the public enjoy this work of yours that you created. I'm trying to think of an analogy. For example, if you get a contract to supply books to this whole country, you might choose person X in northern Uganda to perform the contract by making those books available to the people in the north. You choose another person. For the people in the islands, you choose another person. But the contract stays one, or it stays the same. It's only the performance of this contract that is carried out by different other people. In the same way, as the author of a work, you are the copyright owner, and you can perform each of these economic rights, or you can even give another person the right to perform any or all of these rights. So they can be performed currently or separately, or you can do them, or you can perform them yourself. So this is how copyright affects how you enjoy the work that you have created when you put it out into the market. These are your rights, and you should remember this, because this is where you derive the money that you make when you are the author. This is the basis on which you can go to the public and say, pay me what you are using in respect of my work. We'll come back to those later. Like I told you, I think I've gone back. There are also what are called moral rights. When you are watching a movie, at the end, you will see this kind of thing. You will see they are called credits. When you're watching a music video, you will see where it says the name of the performer. You will see where it says the studio, or the name of or title of the song. The reason for these things is what are called moral rights. As an author of the work, you have the right to be mentioned or acknowledged every time your work is used. So if you are in a movie, your name will be listed on the credits. If you perform a song, it will be indicated on the screen that so and so is the performer, the director is so and so. The reason for that, like I've mentioned, is because you have a moral right. The moral right is a right to claim authorship of that work. And this right does not, it will never leave you. If you are the author, it will never change. You will always be the author. Shakespeare will always be the author of Henry IV play. You will always be the author, even if your copyright expires, or even if you sell copyright to another person, you will always be the author. And you maintain this right to be known as the author And you can enforce this right by objecting and seeking relief where your work is being distorted. For example, your work is being used in an X-rated movie, you might object to that. Even if you don't own the copyright, you will have a right to object to that, where it's mutilated or altered in a manner that you do not agree with. This is what is called the moral rights. So you have, as an author, you have two different types of rights: economic rights, which gives you the ability to commercially benefit from your work, and then you have the moral rights, which give you the ability to be connected to your work whenever it is being exploited out into the market. And both of them have a purpose. Now, how do you manage your copyright? There are three ways in which you can do it. One, as the author, you can choose to go into the market by yourself. When you choose to do this, however, remember that when you go into the market, you need a different set of skills. You need business acumen, you need marketing skills, you need all these things. So when you choose to go into the market yourself, you will find that your creative side will suffer. You will not be good at any of those. You will not be good as someone who creates work, and you'll also not be good on the business end of things. So it is not an efficient way of managing your copyright, doing it by yourself. So what are the other ways you can do it? You can choose to assign the copyright in this work. Remember, I said that copyright is different from the physical thing in which your work is embodied. So you own a copyright in a song, but this song might be on a CD. So you still maintain ownership of copyright if you give away the CD. So assignment is merely selling. You can choose to sell the copyright in your work. When you do so, you have transferred that interest in your work to this person to whom you have sold. And this was the main form of business before we had the internet and the digital revolution. What would happen in Uganda was that artists would come up with an album. They go to the producer, they produce this album, and they go to the late Kasiukira, or they go to X Zone, and they say, "This is my album." They sell it to him, so they relinquish all responsibilities and interests in that album to this person who was normally called the publisher. So the publisher is the one who would go ahead and exploit. He will pay them maybe 100 million. The artist goes, he doesn't care. But remember, the artist has a moral right. So if, say, Dan Kazigwe, also known as Raga D, sells his album to the late Kasiukira, he would relinquish his copyright, but he will always be known as the performer on that album. In that way, the moral right will help him to promote his business side by branding him when people enjoy his work in the market. But assignment merely means that you have sold off your copyright. This was the prevailing business model, but as we'll see, it is facing challenges. The other way in which you can exploit your work in the market is through a license. What is a license? A license simply means authority or permission to do or not to do something. Actually, it's more to do something. So you will give authority to another person to exploit any of the economic rights that I showed you. So when you do that, that is called a license. You give them just permission. You will maintain the copyright in the work, but you will give them permission to work or perform any of the rights that you own as a copyright owner. An example, you might not have the skills to exploit your work online. So you, as an author, you might choose a company and say, I am giving you permission to sell or to exploit my work online, which is a commercial exploitation right online, and you will pay me, but I will maintain the copyright in my work. So you maintain the copyright, but exploiting that right in the market will be the responsibility of this entity, which you give authorization. What we should realize is that when you are enjoying or you are commercially seeking to benefit from your work, ensure that the contract you have with the third party, whether by sale or license, is written. The law, the Copyright and Neighboring Rights Act, which regulates copyright in Uganda, provides that contracts relating to exploitation of copyright must be in writing. If they are not in writing, then they are avoidable. In other words, someone can come out of the contract and you will not be able to get damages from court. They might be hard for you to enforce if the contract is not written. So your contract for assignment or license should or must be written according to the law. I'm going too fast, I know, but want to be in time. You can note down your questions as we go along. Now, why should you assign? You've chosen that you cannot work, you are not going to perform this work or exploit the work when it goes out into the market. So you've chosen to sell it. Like I've mentioned earlier, this model was common in Uganda before the digital revolution. It will allow the author to relinquish the risk and responsibility of distributing the work. So it would be the responsibility of a publisher like the late Castillo or X Zone to go and sell the work into the market. He will pay a one-time fee to the author, and the author will relinquish all these risks. So that's why assignment is important. The other is that you might lack the capacity to further develop the work or market the work. For example, you could be a songwriter, but you yourself, you don't know how to sing. You could be good at writing scripts, but you don't have the capacity to develop a movie. You don't have the tools or the resources to do this. So you might choose to assign someone else to take on that responsibility. They pay you a fee and you consider your effort have been covered in that assignment. And this practice is also common in the software industry, that you create the work and because of capacity constraints, you sell this work to a third party to enjoy the work when they put it out into the market. What we should know, however, is that assignment is not the same as a commission work. So a commission work is if I ask you to write for me a book, you are considered, the work that you create will automatically vest in me, the person who has commissioned you to write this book for me. So in other words, you will not have, if you have been commissioned, you will not have copyright which you can sell. So for there to be an assignment, there must have been copyright in the first place for which you own. But if you are merely commissioned, for example, you are an employee of an organization, you don't have any copyright to sell or to assign to a third party. A commission work is owned by the person who commissioned you. Copyright automatically vests in this person. Assignment only occurs when you own copyright in that work. You can then sell it to a third person. Now, like I've mentioned, this model of assigning and letting someone else take on the risk and responsibility was diminished because of the internet, because of the digital revolution. Whereas those days you could make a cassette, I don't know if any of you remember a cassette, but you could make a cassette and you sell those copies. Today, someone will have on their flash drive a whole album and will make copies of that album which are as equally good in quality as the original thing. So it became a problem for publishers because there is no market now that is remaining. When someone gets a song and puts it on a disc or DVD or something, he can always make copies and give to other people. So the market for the publisher was in that way distorted and affected. So they could not now take on the risk of buying these works from the authors, principally because of the digital revolution, which undermined their marketing model. So what do? We need now to consider licenses. Like I mentioned, the license is merely a permission or authority to do something. There are two types of licenses that you can give. One is an exclusive license, where it is you give a license to one person, okay, and it is usually limited in the scope of rights. So I can give you a right to broadcast, I give another person the right to perform the work in public, and another person the right to distribute that work. It can also be limited in territory. So I'll give, this, if you have DSTV, the Premier League will give the right to broadcast the fixation of those football matches in a particular territory. In Africa, I think it's Mark's choice, and in other countries you'll find different companies. So it will be limited also in territory. It can also be limited in time. A license now to broadcast, I think Premier League is in billions of pounds, and it's only for, I think, 2 years. So it can also be limited in period. It can also be limited in language. You can say, my license is for you to broadcast or to perform this work in English and no other language, or to translate my book only in Russian and no other language. So this is an exclusive license. It is limited in one or the other, and usually it is limited to only one licensee. And there is also a non-exclusive license where it is not limited to one licensee. Even you as the author can still perform any of these rights. So you might give to NBS, you give to NTV, you give to UBC the rights to broadcast your work. That's called a non-exclusive license, because many different licensees are able to exploit your work in the public. So permissions can be exclusive or non-exclusive. What we should note here is that your license must be written. Like I mentioned, if it's not written, it is voidable. Either party can get out of it, and it will be hard for you to sue and get damages. Now, when you license someone, you remember you maintain the copyright in that work. So they will pay you a fee for the right or the authorization you've given them to use your work. This fee is called a royalty. This royalty can be a lump sum. So I can decide that for you to broadcast my performance, you'll pay me 1 million shillings, and that's it. Or it can be per usage, that every time you rebroadcast my performance on your TV or on your radio, you'll pay me a fee. But this depends on the contract that you have with the third party whom you have licensed to exploit your work. So the royalties are paid for usage of your work, or as per the agreement you have with the third party, and it can be a lump sum where one fee is paid to you, or it can be per usage where every time it is used, a certain fee is paid to you. So we mentioned that this is an alternative to the old model of assignment, that because of the digital revolution, the best way now in which we can commercialize our work in the market is through licenses. So everyone who is involved in commercialization of corporate works falls in these three categories. You are either doing it yourself, or you have signed or sold your rights to a third party, or you license a third party to exploit your work in the public. Those are the three ways, and licensing model is the one that is now suited for the market. Why is that? Because first of all, as the owner of corporate, you maintain the right in that work and allow others to exploit the work at a fee. That's one benefit. So you will still maintain the copyright in the work. If the relationship with the third party doesn't work, or you get a better deal, you can always move to this other party to exploit your work in the market. The other reason that the advantage of licensing is that
Gilbert, can you wrap up to give us enough time for the question and answer?
Oh, how much time am I left with?
You've exceeded. You have 5 minutes to wrap up.
Okay. Thank you for that, although it says 5:30. All right, so the advantages of licensing, like I was mentioning, you will have an opportunity even to your product when you put it out into the market. You may be able to expand in other markets through this licensing model because you're unable to reach there. The Premier League is in the UK, but people play football in Uganda because of licensing. And in the same way, if you want to grow into additional markets outside Uganda, you need to use licenses if you have to benefit. And also it allows for efficient management of your rights through collecting societies. I know now I'm going to say the time's up, but let me share this issue about CMOs. Collecting societies are a bridge between the user and the rights holder. Everyone who uses your work should be able to pay you as the author or the owner of copyright in this work. To do so, the law provides a mechanism called the collective management organization, which is licensed to collect from the users of your work and remit these royalties to you. In Uganda, we have 3 CMOs that we have licensed. One is UPRS. Most of you, if you're in music, you've heard of this one. It is in respect of musical works. There's Uganda Federation of Movie Industry for the audiovisual works, and Reproduction Rights Organization, which represents people in literary works. They help the authors or owners of copyright to collect royalties from all users. Because you can imagine if you are a performer, there is no way you're going to collect from the broadcasting of your performance in Guru, as well as Kisoro, as well as the Karangala, and it's not possible. The only effective way to do this is through a collective society. And it helps you to manage your rights when you go into the market, because as we mentioned, licensing is the best way to do it, and the mode of doing it is through this collective management of your rights. Why should you join a collective management organization? And I'll end on this slide. The reason being that most people, and it has come even, it has affected the industry right now, that because most artists used to go at it alone, when things like COVID came, when things like the internet came, you find that you are a very tiny fish in a very big ocean. Most artists will say, me, I'm well known, I'm more famous, I'm like this. And when they go out into the market, they find that no one cares. They are not making money as they expect. So the collective management model helps you to use scale and scope of collecting societies to be able to gain from your work. And why is it necessary? There is this, I don't know whether many of you have heard of this prisoner's dilemma. The prisoner's dilemma is simple. It expresses why you should work with others to be able to gain from this collaboration. One is that if there are two people who have been arrested by police, police does not have enough evidence to charge them. So to ensure that they get them behind bars, they put them in 2 separate rooms and give them deals. They tell the first person A that if you confess, you will get 2 years in jail. But if you do not confess and your colleague who is person B confesses, you will get 5 years. They give the same deal to person B. Of course, naturally, every person will choose to confess because they don't know what the other person will do. They don't know that the other person, they don't think the other person will keep quiet. So they choose to confess. And when both of them confess, each of them gets 2 years in jail. But what they don't know is that if they could collaborate and both of them not confess, each of them will get 0 years in jail because there's no sufficient evidence to put them in jail. What it means for us is that every time you do not collaborate, you are not going to get the most optimum benefits out of what you are trying to put to the market. If these prisoners A and B do not collaborate, the best they can get will be 4 years in total. But if they collaborate, they will get 0 years. In the same way, artists think that if I go at it alone, I'm famous, I have more connections, I know more people, that I'll be able to make it in the market. But you will never get the best that you will get if you do not collaborate through the CMOs. So confessing or do not confessing is a scenario to show you that the best way for an artist, whether you are famous, whether you are starting, the best way to ensure you get the best out of the market is to collaborate through the collecting societies. This is what the Prisoner's Dilemma tries to explain. And I can tell you even today that artists have realized that if you are going to seek support, if you are going to gain from the rate that's available, you have to work with others. It doesn't matter whether you are big or small, you must collaborate. And the best mechanism is to work through these collecting societies. For them, they have the scope, they have the scale, they have the resources to be able to collect from everyone. If you go and you say, I'm a big artist, let me go and the promoter pays me 100 million, I forget everything else. What you don't know is that there are other users benefiting from your work. There are hotels using your work. There are recreational places using your work. All these people are supposed to pay you, but you will never get it because you have refused to collaborate through the CMO. So the best way to enjoy your benefits in the market is through collecting societies. So if you are here and you are an artist, you must join a CMO. Since I'm out of time, the rest I will not share, but I'll leave them for questions. I'll end on that respect, but please join a collecting society for the better of your industry. Thank you. Now, Ori.
Thank you, Gilbert, for your rather long presentation. Could you kindly share it in the chat? Before we go into the question and answer, I would like to give a few minutes to Mr. Joseph Chirabo from UPPC. 3 minutes, Mr. Joseph Chirabo, unmute your mic and speak about the few developments at UPPC that could be of great benefit to our listeners. Mr. Chirabo?
Hello.
You can go ahead. You can go ahead.
Hello. Hello. Okay.
Joseph, you can go ahead.
Good evening to everyone. Yes, I'm trying to. I'm on my way. I'm in transit. You will excuse me if the network is not very good, but I want to appreciate the organizers of this meeting.
Joseph, maybe we shall wait for you to maybe park or something so that we can engage you after this, because we can't hear you. So let us take questions. Gilbert, the first question is from
sorry, the network is a challenge, but now on. My subject is about this organization in as regards supporting the people who can't afford the high-end products for Gazette.
Joseph, your call is not clear. Can you probably get a better place where your call can be clear? Let us take questions. Joseph, you could mute and you will speak.
And
Joseph,
I want also.
Joseph, your call is not clear.
Came up with a product. They are copyrights. And I also want to mention this product is not a standard product. It is a product based on a 4.5 font point size. The standard product of copyright is always based on a 9-point font size. And it goes for 230,000. So because UPPC listens, it had to really appreciate the request that was made by this organization. We had to go back to the drawing board and innovated a product that is like a classified product. The point size will be small, but it will be able to serve the purpose. But we also have to appreciate that these times are not very easy economically. These are tough times. The company still incurs certain fixed costs in terms of maintaining the staffs, in terms of maintaining the machinery, in terms of maintaining the services and ensuring that the services get to the public. So we want to thank all those who participated in the discussions as regards the price review. And we are happy and delighted to work with everybody. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Joseph. I struggled to listen to the first part. I hope it wasn't the same with the rest of our participants. Maybe you could also use the chat room to post the good news about UPPC so that people can get it. So I'm going right to the questions. Gilbert, prepare yourself. The first question is from Atukwase Christine. Good evening, everyone. I'm inquiring about instances of oral contracts for exploitation of a copyright work. Can the copyright holder sue for recovery of monies entitled to him in case the assignee abdicates the oral contract? Gilbert, can you respond to that?
Thank you, Nangobi. I think it was, can someone just repeat it a bit?
I'm inquiring about instances of oral contracts for exploitation of a copyright work. Can the copyright holder sue for recovery of monies entitled to him in case the assignee abdicates the oral contract word of mouth?
Okay, thank you. The law section 39 of the Corporate and Neighboring Rights Act says that if a contract does not comply with what's prescribed in that part, the contract is voidable. And I don't believe they'll be able to claim damages for a voidable contract. That said, there could be other types of basis on which they can be based, but not, in my opinion, you will not be able to get damages based on an oral contract where someone receives continued performance of the contract, saying it is not, does not comply with the law. So, but it will be interesting to see what the court would say about something like that, because there are other laws that would apply, not necessarily just corporate contract, and these other things might come into play. In my opinion, no damages.
Okay, then the second question, Gilbert, try and share your presentation with everyone. The second question is from David Tayebwa. Most of the artists think that they own the producers or songwriters' music if they simply transact some money in exchange to perform this music. And due to the current trends where our content creators don't issue transaction agreements to artists, they use Section 8 of CNRA to say that they fully own these copyrights. In such a situation, would you call this transfer an assignment or a license?
I didn't properly understand the scenario that you hire musicians to do something. Can you repeat the scenario?
The scenario is a producer or songwriter, the music, they transact, they exchange money for music or to perform. So due to the current trends, where our content creators don't issue transaction agreements to artists. They use Section 8 of the Copyright and Neighboring Rights Act to say that they fully own these copyrights. In such a situation, would you call this transfer an assignment or a license?
In the
The
first
artist
place,
has handed their music to a producer.
yes, of course, it depends on the transaction that transpired between the producer and the artist. If it's a contract for hire, so I give you my work that I want you to produce this work for me. I have commissioned you to make a production of my work. The producer will have a different neighboring right, but the copyright in that work will stay with the author. However, that problem is not a problem of the law. The problem has been mentioned. It's more of awareness issue. Remember what I said, that you can only have an assignment when you have something to sell. If you don't have anything to sell, if you don't have copyright, then there is nothing that can be sold. But also, if someone commissions you to do something in respect of the work, the person who commissioned you automatically owns the copyright in that work. So it's not the person who actually writes. For example, if I hire you to write lyrics for a song for me, I have commissioned you and I will own the copyright in that work. It will automatically vest in me. So you have nothing to assign to a third party. I hope it's clear.
Thank you, Gilbert. And then from Dorothy Nabunjo, how is the registration filed given that one musical work has around 4 copyright owners? Is it registered by one person listing the other copyright owners?
The person who's registered as the author of the work becomes a copyright owner. But there could be different interests in the work. The best way, if you want to avoid the problem in the future, because if you are not indicated, if there's a certificate that says so and so is the only author, that means that if you're a songwriter and the performer is the only person indicated as the author, the songwriter has no, you'll have to sue to prove that he's actually the author. So the best way, I know what Nabunju is looking at, but if you want to protect yourself as the author, still register, even if it is just a part of the whole bigger work, still register your interest as the author, for example, of the script that was used in the movie. Register that element as yourself. Of course, it will be a bit costly, but the risk of you having your interest dissolved or lost in to another person, like just by paperwork, is much bigger and much greater. So I encourage you that as the author, if you have copyright in the work, make sure that you register it as an individual, and then you can negotiate with the other parties on how you're going to benefit.
Thank you, Gilbert. She asks, Nabunjo asks again, can the registration form be adjusted to capture all the songs? Let us say it's an album or EP with over 6 to 24 songs, and also include all the copyright owners. In the instance of a musician having more than 20 songs, she's asking, can the form be adjusted to capture all those songs and also the rest of the other copyright owners on the song?
Yes, of course it can, but there are other ways in which you can register your album. You can register it as a compilation of your work. One album you can apply and register it as a compilation of everything that you've created. So you will need to file on one application form for that compilation, which is the album. But if there is a necessity to amend the form, no, we'll go through the process of amending the regulations, the issues we are taking care of. And of course, we will engage you as our stakeholder to give us your interest in areas that need to be amended.
Okay, thank you, Gilbert. Jackie asks, is it possible that 2 people can come up with a similar idea? How do you prove that 2 or more people had the same idea and produced works as opposed to a work being copied?
That's a good question. And I'll give an example. If 2 people go and take the picture of the monument I showed you earlier, you might inadvertently, both of you stand in the same place. and take the same picture. What the court will look at in determining originality will be that one, you did not copy, and of course the person who alleges must prove. If you are saying that someone copied, then you must prove that they actually copied. And on the other, the person who's also seeking the registration of their original work, they will show what they did, the modicum of creativity that they brought to the table to create that work. So it is possible that two people can have the same idea, but the law considers how the idea is expressed, and that is what is protected. And usually there is a difference in which the idea is expressed. Both of us can be in the same place, looking at the same thing, taking the same picture, but we will still come out with something that reflects how we are creative in expressing ourselves.
Thank you, Gilbert. I request that you give us a few minutes. We're supposed to end at 6, which is a minute away. Can we take the 3 questions and then we close our session? I request for you to allow us an extra 5 minutes. Gilbert, a question from Katerioga John. Can we have a license as a brand, for example, John K as a songwriter, so that we don't continue paying for each piece or a song made? And this license is renewable, say annually, like the KCCA license for the different operators. A suggestion in form of a question. This is a suggestion from John, but also at the same time he's asking if it's possible for URSB to grant a license to a songwriter so that they can continue using it to produce their music. Is that something?
Okay. The right to sell or assign or the right to license is the right of the author. It's not the responsibility of URSB. So you as the author or owner of the work have the right to sell your work or to license it to a third party. It's up to you really. You don't need URSB to come in. It's really your responsibility. But like I mentioned, you should maybe, to gain leverage in your negotiation, try and work through a CMO. They can help you to negotiate your license with the third parties.
Okay, thank you, Gilbert. You can take this last question. Who owned, it's from Jackie, who owned copyright for folklore, e.g. folk songs and tales?
If the folk song is original, then the person who fixed it in the material form is the author. But the folk song that is original, for example, which song? I'm trying to recall one folk song that is original. What will happen is that someone will get a folk song or traditional song, and then they mix it and bring in new elements. They bring in new beats. They add their own words, or they add something new to it. The law will not protect the underlying, copyright will not protect the underlying folk song because you cannot tell who the author is, and usually even if the author could be identified, maybe he has long died and the work has fallen in public domain, but it will protect this work that you have derived from combining a folk song with new elements. The copyright will protect that. That said, folklore and traditional songs will fall, or we are trying to work on another type of legislation that will provide for protection of these unique expressions, which we have conserved and inherited from our forefathers and will continue to enjoy when they are brought into the market. But they require different branch of law to protect. As far as IP is concerned, it has certain limits which may restrict whether folklore itself can be protected under copyright. But a derivative work or a work derived from a folklore can be protected under copyright. Thank you, Nangobi.
Thank you, Gilbert. We appreciate the comment from our participants on this call who are asking us to continue having this sort of engagements. We shall continue engaging you on a weekly basis every Friday at 5 p.m. You can log in as you're going home. You can log in as you wait to go home in the traffic. Before we close, I request the Registrar General to say 1 or 2 things to us, and then we will close. RG, you're welcome.
Provia, I was in Kamoli. I didn't expect to speak. I was listening in attentively. I thank you very much, Hubert, for that presentation. And thanks to all that have asked questions and those that have attended. Let's continue to share flyers so that we have more and better attendance as we build visibility and knowledge dissemination in as far as intellectual property is concerned. All the best and have a nice weekend. Thank you.
Thank you, RG, for your kind words. Sorry to have ambushed you, but I couldn't have continued without you saying a thing. Thank you, all our participants. We shall continue having these engagements. Gilbert, there's a question, there's a suggestion that we continue to engage people to understand the copyright law very clearly, especially the people in the creative sector. Thank you for giving us your 1 hour, and I wish you all a very good evening. Sentongo, we have shared the presentation. It's in the chat. Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening and keep safe.